I don't think you're going to get an unemployed labor lawyer, to move to California to pick lettuce for $20 an hour if you could pay that much.
Yep.
Uh, Likewise, a lot of these factory jobs we don't have the workers for. And it isn't a matter of training, it's just a matter of sheer numbers.
Let's talk about this now. We're talking tariffs and turmoil in a different area. Donald Trump has been warned by US supermarket giants that his trade tariffs could result in empty shelves. The chief executives of three of the US's largest retailers, Home Depot, Target and Walmart, reportedly warned the US president his tariffs and trade policy could disrupt supply chains and raise prices. Trump, lest you forget, placed sweeping import taxes of 145% on China, which retaliated with 125% tariffs on US goods. He also imposed levies on several dozen countries, causing the stock market to tumble and interest rates to increase. Let's go back to Professor Emeritus Peter Morici. We had a good chat last time. He's an economist at the University of Maryland and former director of the Office of Economics at the US International Trade Commission. Prof. Peter, hello, welcome back to the show.
Nice to be with you again.
That was really good. Excellent. Okay, so when the chief executives of Home Depot, Target and Walmart, I'm not sure how often Trump shops there, but a lot of his base will do, warn the president that this has got to stop. The clock is ticking, and in a couple of weeks, we might start seeing empty shelves, and it will start affecting some of your voters. Does he listen? And if he listens, what does he do?
Well, I don't know that he listens very well. I think that what moved him to roll back the tariffs and to make some positive noises these last few days was the stock market plunging, because that was very threatening to the economy. And also, all the analysis that's coming out. And in order to find an economist that says this economy is going to profit by this, you have to talk to the 4 or 5 that work at the White House. He's really getting universally panned for this policy. You know, there was a good constituency, a broad constituency for just focusing on China, and Walmart and Target and the others would be in his Oval Office about that. But the reality is we can source product from other parts of the world. It won't be instantaneous, and we won't get all the products that we now have, but we will have a decent store shelf. You have to remember, if you talk about protection, the steel industry and the United Auto Workers are for it no matter what. And if you talk about protection, no matter what you're talking about, Walmart cries wolf. And as an example of just how unbelievable they are, Apple got an exemption for iPhones and tablets and so forth on the duty on China. It turns out by the end of 2026, they will indeed be able to source all their iPhones from India, now, or virtually all. Now, you just never know what to think. When we were talking about emissions control, the automobile companies said it wasn't possible. We were talking about advertising for tobacco. The cigarette companies, said, oh, it doesn't cause cancer. You don't know who to believe. I do know this. Walmart and Target are not terribly believable on this issue.
Right. I'm just looking at a quote from the chief executive of Target, Brian Cornell, who said the consumer will likely see price increases over the next couple of days. Really? we don't have to wait very long to judge him then.
Well, the thing is that the tariffs were announced April 2nd, and although they were rolled back down around the 5th or the 6th, something like that, a time has gone by, and products coming in the country that has to pay the tariff, so the prices are going to go up. But be clear, if a bottle, let's say a shirt, a shirt costs $20 at Target for the sake of easy math. That means Target pays about $10 for that. And of that, the duty is assessed on something less because they either have a wholesaler or they're the wholesaler. But you basically pay the duty on the value of the shirt when it's loaded in China. So it's net of shipping and it's net of wholesale distribution and so forth. So you're really dealing with whatever tariff it is, you're dealing with a much smaller value that it's assessed on because that's the law.
Yep.
And so the prices aren't going to go up nearly as much. The real problem with empty shelves is that on the other side, they can't deal with 145% at most factories. And I don't think that Chairman Xi is in a position to subsidize them all at the level necessary.
What are
And
are you saying that Xi doesn't have the cards he thinks he has because the Chinese have been
well, that's a much
playing.
broader.
No,
That's
but
a much
the
broader
Chinese have been
statement.
saying very, very clearly, if you want negotiations, cancel these tariffs and then we negotiate. Trump says, no, you come to me and negotiate.
Well, again, Z makes very broad statements. The reality is these will hurt some people over there, but he's in a position to control dissent. He's in a position to control his population. After all, look at how he locked them down for COVID. And that's the real advantage he has, is that Donald Trump is going to get people who are upset. They go to Walmart and there are products on the shelves, but not always all the products that they're accustomed to seeing. And unless Walmart wants to make a point and they create some empty shelves, God bless them. I mean, I don't know that I condone that, but they might do that. But they should be able to get adequate product to put on the shelves. But people will be upset they can't find everything they used to have, and there'll be dissent. In China, they put you in jail for that. Here, they have to listen to it.
Yep. I'm just looking at some more data. This is from Port Optimizer, and they tell us that the number of freight vessels scheduled to arrive at the port of Los Angeles from China is on track to be down 33% year on year for the week ending May the 10th. That's according to the latest ship tracking data. So they're deducing that companies have been cancelling their shipment of goods from China and halting new orders. People are going to notice this and they're going to start complaining.
Well, yeah. For example, Amazon's canceled a lot of orders. But the reality is that Amazon, Target, and Walmart are in a position to find other suppliers. They have resources to do that. And in time, production will move to other locations. Some of it will come here, but most of it's going to go to other places in Southeast Asia.
But that's not going to happen overnight, Peter. And much of this, just like it
Well,
is...
it depends on what we're talking about.
Yep.
You'd be surprised how fast a sewing machine factory can be put up to make shirts.
Yep.
If we're talking about making advanced semiconductors, that can take 3 years. If we're talking about making shirts, it can take a month.
Sure. And when it comes to US iPhone production shifting to India, the irony is Donald Trump wanted to use these tariffs as an instrument to bring these companies and their industry back to the US. So US workers would have these jobs, not people underpaid and under pressure in China. But that's not happening if it gets shifted to India.
Well, the reality is that we don't have the workers to do all these things. If you put this together, I'm not trying to bury the story, but with his immigration strategy, I'm at the bicycle at the gym, and one of his activists, I live in Washington. You can imagine the people that I'm among. Mm-hmm. One of his activists, one of his political consultants, when I say his, I mean Republican political consultants, says, well, Peter, they'll just have to pay more in the farm, and we'll be able to get Americans to pick lettuce. There are a couple of million workers at least in the construction and agricultural sector doing very basic jobs that are illegal immigrants. We only have 7 million unemployed people in the United States that are seeking work. Of those, many are white-collar types that have been displaced by artificial intelligence. I don't think you're going to get an unemployed lawyer, to move to California to pick lettuce for $20 an hour, if you could pay that much.
Yep.
Likewise, a lot of these factory jobs, we don't have the workers for. And it isn't a matter of training. It's just a matter of sheer numbers.
It's a matter of sheer numbers, Peter. And, of course, many of those 2 million people you say are there illegally. They're being rounded up by ICE and sent off to God knows where, including El Salvador.
Hold on. I think people in Britain need to understand that Donald Trump is frustrated by his inability to round people up as Strammer and Sunak were. You didn't manage to deport a lot of people, and Donald Trump is not managing to deport a lot of people. There's a lot of TV time devoted to those poor folks that got sent to that terrible El Salvador prison, and I have a great deal of sympathy for them and their families. It was a terrible thing that happened to some of them, but they find it very difficult to catch him.
All right.
And very difficult to get him out of the country, and the judges aren't very friendly. So, there's not a lot of exiting. The reality is that we're not seeing people missing. if he was rounding him up, you wouldn't be able to go into a New York City sandwich shop and get a sandwich.
Peter, we're only 95 days into the presidency. We're going to leave it there. There's plenty more time for ICE and the CBP to round people up and for people to notice. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Professor Emeritus Peter Morici from the University of Maryland. It's Henry Bonsu on Times Radio.